Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, thank you so much. It's so good to be here. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I've lived here for many, many years. I used to work on Capitol Hill for a congressman, and my husband is an attorney in this area. And then after I worked on Capitol Hill, I worked on campaigns, had multiple children, and I ended up having twins, number 5 and number 6. So I had twin babies. And back in 2019, I found myself rushing into the ER, getting that phone call that no one ever wants to get, that something was wrong with my husband and that I needed to get to the ER fast. In fact, I was actually showering and was missing all of the phone calls from all of his coworkers. And my neighbor, they called my neighbor. She came in, knocked on the shower door, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I didn't even know what to expect. I wasn't sure what was going on with my husband. They just said that something was seriously wrong. So I run in. Luckily, my neighbor was there to watch my twin babies and my other kids that were home. And I run in, open the door to the ER, and see my 37-year-old husband who was slumped over in a wheelchair. Instantly in my heart, as soon as I saw him, it looked like he had aged 50 years. I was like, he looks like he's 80 years old. But also instantly in my heart, it looked like he was having a stroke. Like I knew that there was something serious going on, and I felt like it was a stroke. So what I knew in my heart took doctors a long time to figure out, so many hours in the ER, so many tests, but they did confirm what my heart knew, and that he had suffered a stroke, and it was affecting his vision. So he couldn't see, and it was really difficult at the time. We spent days in the hospital, and they ran all the tests to see why a 37-year-old would be having a stroke. He wasn't significantly overweight. There was no family history. There was no hole in his heart. There was no heart arrhythmia. There was no reason. And the one thing that they did tell us is that because he's had one stroke, he's at a higher risk of having another stroke in the future. And so in order to avoid this from happening again, the best thing that we can do, what lies in our power, is to eat a heart healthy diet. And they gave us a piece of paper that said what a heart healthy diet is. And that is a diet that, does not have trans fat, that avoids saturated fat, that avoids cholesterol, that is high in fiber, and obviously no alcohol. So to me, that was really confusing because I just wanted to know what to make for dinner. It's like, I would love to have more of an explanation of, what meals I can cook, what is a little bit more heart healthy and what isn't. And when I started to scour the internet, there was a lot of conflicting views. I asked so many friends their opinion, and a lot of them were fitness influencers. So they had, particular opinions on how to lose weight maybe, and what health looks like in the short period of time in order for weight loss. But no one really had the answers for long-term health. What can we eat so that it reduces his risk of getting another stroke in the future? And it all came down to, number one, making sure that we are avoiding that saturated fat. And so I was like, okay, well, what is saturated fat? And as I started to study, I found that saturated fat is found mostly in animal products, in cheese, right? Cheese is the number one source of saturated fat in the American diet. Next would be beef, but also all of the other types of dairy like butter, heavy cream, things like that. Then the second thing was cholesterol. After trans fat, which has been a ban, obviously has been banned, and you do find traces of trans fat in different products, but luckily since 2020, it's not really in our food system like it was in the past, but it's still best to avoid fast foods, which we were doing anyway. But cholesterol is mostly found in animal products as well. And then fiber, where do I get more fiber? Do I need to be buying Fiber One bars? Do we need a fiber supplement? And what I found kind of surprised me, that the fiber is actually just found in plants. We just needed to eat more plants. Any type of plant, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, any of those plants will help to increase our fiber intake. And it was fascinating to find that, 95 to 97% of Americans aren't even eating enough fiber. So we all can be eating more fiber-rich diet. So at the time, I was willing to do whatever it took. My husband couldn't work like he used to. He couldn't drive. I had 6 young kids at home, trying to manage all of that, trying to drive him to his doctor's appointments. And I was also reminded of my dad. My dad was just 55 years old when he had a heart attack. And he only had one heart attack, only took one. He passed away and did not get a second chance. At the time when my mom had called me, telling me about his heart attack, I remember just praying, getting on my knees and praying, pleading with God, wishing that he could come back to life, that that they could resuscitate him, that he could be around. I was just in so much shock, and I wish that he had gotten that second chance. And while that prayer was not answered, we did get a second chance with my husband. He was around. While his vision was impacted, he was still my husband. And so I was willing to do whatever it took. And as a wife and as a mother, I realized that I actually have a lot of power when it comes to any type of cardiovascular disease, because most of cardiovascular diseases, heart disease is the number one cause of death in America overall, but one in three people under the age of 65, that is the the most popular premature death. And so as my husband was so young, it's like, okay, I have the power, diet and lifestyle. So I did a lot of research and found that in order to avoid all these things and to eat more fiber, that a plant-focused, a plant-forward, a plant-based diet was really the best diet for long-term health. But being a mom with 6 kids, I needed to be able to do it in a way that was flexible. I didn't want my whole family to rebel, like, we can't do this. And so I found that, maybe eating a little bit of animal products sparingly here and there, when we travel, when we go to other people's houses, it was a perfect way to be able to live this lifestyle comfortably without feeling like I was telling my kids, never again will we have cheese, never again will you be able to go to McDonald's or things like that. And as a mom, having that flexibility was key in order to heal my husband, in order to make it doable. And so after 6 months of eating this way, we saw incredible changes with my husband. He wasn't significantly overweight, but he was a lot more overweight than we had really thought about or realized. And he lost a solid 20 pounds without having to stress about it. He didn't even have to count calories or anything. His cholesterol numbers improved. I learned that cholesterol, especially ApoB numbers, are really, really important when it comes to your risk of cardiovascular disease. And his LDL cholesterol went down, which is really, really important. He also, most importantly, was able to get his vision back. It was a very slow process. We were hoping it would come back immediately, but it didn't. It took time. But finally, over time in 2020, in fact, the week that the world shut down for all of us, it was around March 14th, his vision was finally back to normal. Now, with all of that being said and done, it wasn't the end of the story. It was actually just the beginning. Because of 2020, all of my other obligations were removed. I didn't have to teach. I teach Pilates. I was teaching a lot of exercise and fitness classes. I had some other things going on, and I didn't have to do that anymore. And instead, I decided to start studying more about nutrition. I later became a nutritionist, and I just want to be able to teach others basically what it took me so long to figure out myself. Like, what is it that you can eat? What are the recipes that are heart healthy? What can I feed my family that they'll actually like, that they won't rebel against? How can we make this work in a flexible way? You see so many people online that it has to be so strict in order to see the benefits. benefits, but truly it's more of a theme of eating, more plants, less animal products, and you don't have to be perfect to see the results. And that's what I wanted to shout on the rooftops to everyone. And so that's my story. That's kind of how everything began and why I'm here today.
Wow. Ali, what an incredible story. Listening to you speak, I am reminded of my own little crisis with congestive heart failure. I learned really quickly that your health is your wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are healthy, it impacts so many aspects in your life. And for you as a young mom to have to deal with your husband, his stroke, can you tell us how your husband's stroke and your journey into this plant-based nutrition has reshaped your family's approach to health and wellness?
Yeah, I think before this, we all looked at, okay, what's a healthy diet? A healthy diet is, where you're losing weight, which is true. That's very beneficial, but it could be any way to weight loss. In fact, at the time, I'd had twin babies and my husband had also gained the twin baby weight. So at the time we were following what we thought was healthy, which is the typical high protein, lower carb type meals. I was following a meal plan and it was working. We were losing weight. However, that's also the same time my husband had a stroke. And so they don't always equate. Just because you're losing weight doesn't necessarily mean that your cholesterol numbers are going down, depending on what you're eating. And the other way around too, you could be significantly improving your cholesterol numbers and not lose weight. And so it's interesting. Health is very nuanced. And so doing it in a way where, you're bringing those important health markers down, and ideally, obviously losing weight if that's one of your goals, but seeing health through a different lens. It's not just, okay, is this going to help me lose weight? It's okay, is this going to help me live longer? What do the people that live the longest in the world, what are they eating? And they're eating boring food like vegetables, a lot of vegetables. So it's good for you. No one can argue against the fact that vegetables are so good for us.
It is so true. Yeah, I met a friend who basically said to me, from now on, you need to eat like a caveman. He said, if you stick to your nuts, your fruits, your berries, you cannot go wrong. Mm-hmm. And so effectively, I don't stock up on food. Mm-hmm. I have to go to the market every single day to get my fresh vegetables and my produce. And when I'm feeling peckish and hungry, I snack on nuts and berries and all of those really basic things that we sometimes forget are so nutritious and good for us. So what has been the biggest misconceptions around plant-based eating, and how do you address them with your clients?
Yeah, I think a huge misconception, like even let's talk about saturated fat. There's a lot of studies that are like, no, butter actually isn't that bad for you. And you can eat a lot of meat and still be healthy. And I think the biggest key to all of this is when you read a study or you hear someone say something, you ask yourself, well, compared to what? Because there is this, an underlying issue that if you're eating the standard American diet, standard Western diet, right, you're eating a lot of processed foods. And if you were to change that and even just cut out the processed foods and say you're still eating the meat and the dairy, but you're also eating whole foods and vegetables, compared to that, yes, you're right, a higher saturated fat diet, but you're not having processed foods, that is going to be healthier. And the studies are going to show that. But then if you were to compare a plant-based diet to that higher saturated fat diet with animal products and cheese and dairy, but again, no processed foods. But if this plant-based diet has the beans, the legumes, the nuts, the seeds, the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains, then compared to that, nothing really can outdo the cholesterol levels, the improved cholesterol levels, the improved, blood sugar levels, all of the things that come when you're eating, a whole food plant-based diet, not just a vegan diet, more of a whole food. And it can even be flexible. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can have a little bit of, yogurt, like non-fat Greek yogurt. You can have some fish, some other things in there too, like more of a Mediterranean diet, and still see the similar benefits.
So how can someone transitioning to a plant-forward diet without feeling overwhelmed or restricted?
Ooh, such a great question. Simple things. So I always like to start with dairy. The dairy that you don't necessarily need. So for example, if you're making air pop popcorn, instead of putting butter on it, just use olive oil. Even if you're making cookies, instead of using butter, use olive oil. Like when it comes to heart health, olive oil is so much better for you than butter. So if you were making a recipe before, just make that simple swap. And then if you can at least cut out maybe half of the animal products that you used to be making and add in more beans. So if you're making tacos, instead of just a ton of ground beef, maybe use half of the package of ground beef, add in some black beans. Or even just find one recipe a week that doesn't have animal products, because just swapping out one meal a week, just one meal a week from animal protein to plant protein, and making that swap will decrease your risk of dying from all causes by 12%. So even just it's really just swapping out 3% of your animal intake to plant type of intake, and that reduces your risk of dying significantly. 12% is a big deal, and it's something so simple.
That is so true. And when you know these stats, it puts things into perspective, why you're doing what you're doing as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So what are some of the quick and practical plant-based meals that families can enjoy together?
Oh, it's so simple. Especially nowadays, you can, if you're worried about protein, you can buy protein pasta and make whatever pasta dish you made before, spaghetti. I mean, it does not have to be complicated. But all I did was I took all the recipes that I was already cooking and I thought, okay, how can I veganize this? How can I make this so that maybe instead of chicken, I'm using chickpeas. So I have a cashew chicken recipe that I use chickpeas now instead, but everything else stayed the same. So I just swapped out, beans instead of meat. And so it doesn't have to be as complicated as I think we make it out to be. But there also are a lot of really great recipes online. You can search vegan lasagna recipe and find one. And I have a YouTube channel where that's all I do on my YouTube channel is show you all of these recipes that are so simple, quick 10-minute recipes, beginner friendly recipes that are delicious, to kind of prove that yes, this can be delicious, it can be easy, and it can be fun.
Yeah, and fun being the operative word, right? It's have fun with it. Don't make it a struggle. I think a lot of times people just start overthinking things. It goes into the too hard basket.
Yep.
And yet it doesn't have to be hard. It's actually up to you how you want to have this experience.
And I think that's a surprising aspect of it for me, is the creative process of it. I actually like cooking because it's just a fun, creative way of doing it than I used to do in the past.
Now let's go on to, fitness and Pilates. What is core strength? Why is core strength so critical for the overall health and sustainable weight loss?
Yeah. So, it's funny, you can't take the Pilates instructor out of the nutrition business. I still, as I'm working with clients, they're telling me they're losing weight, but they still have a poochy belly. And I'm like, okay, well, let me put on my Pilates hat and just ask you a couple questions. And I found that so many people were struggling with the same things. I'm like, this really, really needs to be, part of my program. But basically, most women who've had children or even just have gone through menopause, may have a split in their abs, diastases, or even if you've gained a significant amount of weight at some point in your life, your abs will tend to split. Now, even if you've lost weight, even if you've already had a baby, the abs don't necessarily come back together unless you do deep core strength, right? And you're going to have a poochy belly. You can lose weight, you can do all the things, but your belly's going to stick out a little bit if you can't just bring those abs back together. And it's the simplest thing. In fact, you could all do it right now. All you have to do is sit up tall, bring your navel in and up, squeeze like someone's about to punch you in the belly, right? So you're just, bracing your core. You've heard that a million times. And lift it up, lift your belly button in and up. So brace your core, pull it up, and then release. And it's just like doing those simple exercises. You brace your core, lift it up, and then release. Brace your core, lift it up, and then release. It, again, doesn't have to be complicated. You can do this while you're brushing your teeth, while you're doing the dishes. But as you do this over time, you'll see that gap will start to decrease. And you can also strengthen your pelvic floor at the same time, same concept. But this time, think of lifting your pelvic floor, like the Kegel muscles, right? You have to go to the bathroom, but you're holding it in. So those muscles, but also lift. So lift with your Kegel muscles, lift with your abs. It's just like you're pulling everything up, you're squeezing everything tight, and then you release it completely. So squeeze everything in and up, squeeze it tight and release it completely. And doing that is really going to be beneficial post-baby, post-menopause, in order to get the slimmer waist that you have been wanting and you're just not seeing. It's sometimes the smallest, the most simple things really do make a big difference.
So what are some of the common mistakes that women make when it comes to building that core strength?
Thinking that crunches are the answer. You're like,
Right.
oh, I want to strengthen my core. Let me just do crunches, right? But the forward flexion is not what you need. You actually need just the to work your transversus abdominis, so the deeper core that's underneath your rectus abdominis, which is that six pack. So we're not working the six pack, right? We're working the muscles underneath that, which is like the core set of muscles that go all the way around to your back. And so just like you have a core set on, you want to just squeeze everything in tight, lift it up, right? And that's how you can work the deeper muscles. So the core strength is not, and this is another thing too, core strength is also working your back muscles. We can't just forward flex all day long. We got to get rotation, side to side movement, and also back extension, and work your glutes. Your glutes are a big part of your core too. Sometimes if your belly sticks out, it's because maybe you need to work your glutes a little more.
Okay. These are very, very important things for us to know. Now, can you explain the connection between pelvic floor health and overall fitness?
So pelvic floor health, it's the foundation. And when your foundation is weak, right, it's going to affect everything else. Yeah, sure, you can build a beautiful house on the sand, and I'm sure it will be fine. But when the next storm comes, what happens? Everything topples down. And so just like that, I mean, it's your pelvic floor that is literally holding up the weight of your world, the weight of your body, all those internal organs. And so you'll find a lot of side effects if you don't keep it strong. And again, it's just the same thing like I explained before. You just work those Kegel muscles, but you lift. So it's not just the squeeze, it's the lift. And as we spend more time on the things that maybe aren't as sexy, right? What you always think about when you lift in the gym, you want muscles to show, and these muscles no one else can see but you. It's something that only you know if you struggle with. Maybe if you pee a little bit when you laugh, cough, or sneeze, things like that. It's like, okay, that's a telltale sign that you need to just spend a little bit more time giving yourself a little more love, working these deeper muscles.
Now, let's go into mindset and motivation. What role does mindset play in achieving long-term health and fitness goals?
It's everything. It's everything. It's funny because most people want to change, right? They want change in their life, but they don't want to actually make the changes that they know they need to make, because it does affect, your day-to-day life, and we're used to doing things. But this is what I found is interesting, and just pulling in the religious aspect of this. A lot of times we think, when we pray, our goal is to bring in, whether it's just to the universe or to God, is to bring in kind of our will in line with the will of divinity. And we sometimes think that's going to be something totally different than what we want. But really, it's usually in line with our desire. So if your desire is to be healthy, it's like, I think the divinity wants you to be healthy too. However, what we do need to change is sometimes those limiting beliefs of like, but I don't have time. But like my kids want to eat a different way. But we have all of these the buts. And so I think mindset is just being willing to try, just like faith. Faith is being willing to take a step forward. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to know every single step. These are my kids. You don't have to know every single step to the next place, but you do need to at least be willing to go, okay, I mean, take one step. I like to use the example of when our kids clean, and when it's time for them to clean up their toys, it's really overwhelming for them. It's like, oh, I don't want to clean this, too big of a mess, but my daughter, like my sister did this and they did that, they don't want to do it. And so my husband always says, okay, we're going to play the game, what's next? So they say, what's next, Dad? What's next? They come to Dad and he says, okay, put all the glasses on the counters away. Okay, they do that. What's next, Dad? What's next? And that's how it can be when it comes to fitness, anything else. Like, what's next? How about I do a 5-minute walk every day? How about I spend 5 minutes doing core work and I go on a 5-minute walk? And so you do that. And then it's like, okay, what's next? What's the next thing I can add in? But you only start on, one thing at a time and master that thing before you go, okay, what's next? And a lot of times I feel like it's hard to do things alone. So ask for help of divinity, ask for that higher power to help you change, because it's so much easier to change with the help of something stronger than you.
So, how do you help clients overcome the all or nothing mentality associated with health journeys?
Mm-hmm. Dichotomous thinking is what it's called. The black and white thinking. It is. In fact, people who are most have a tendency to be all or nothing actually tend to fail the most. That perfectionist thinking, it's like they're all in or they're all out. And so be okay with B minus effort is the best thing. It's like the best advice I can give you. Be okay with B minus effort. This meal might taste okay. Your workout might just be okay. B minus effort. That's all. You're not striving to get 100% and, all A's in your class. No, that was school. This is life. And life just calls for B minus effort. The people who do well aren't looking for perfection in everything they do. They do the best they can and they give it up. It's like when your artwork, right? If you were to paint a piece of art, it's never completely done. Any artist just has to get to a point where they're like, okay, I did the best I can and it's good enough and send it off. Yeah.
Wow. So, can you share a success story of a client who transformed their life through your holistic approach?
Yeah. So one of my favorites was actually at the beginning, and his name was Carrie. I actually work with most women, and it was really his wife that was like, "He needs to do this. I'll cook the food." But he had type 2 diabetes and had followed exactly what the typical diabetes plan is, which is low carb, higher animal products. And it had worked fine for years, but after I think 20 plus years of that, his body was failing him. He was in kidney failure. He had neuropathy, and was, they even threatened to like have to cut off his toe. Like things were not going okay. So his doctor actually suggested, how about you try a plant-based diet? So he's like, okay, I'm willing. And at the same time, his wife was following me on Instagram. It's like, okay, we're going to do this. And so they joined, and within 3 months, he lost 32 pounds. And the biggest miracle of it all was that he was able to go off like he was on 4 different medications, and he kept like a half of one of the medications. His blood pressure went down significantly. And I think that's the thing too, like with a plant-based diet, when it's high in potassium rich foods, high in fiber, it's really easy for your blood pressure to go down, because one of the factors of high blood pressure and hypertension is sodium. And when you're consuming potassium, like, foods that are simple as potatoes, spinach, avocados, tomatoes, what it does is it pulls the sodium from your bloodstream and puts it into your urine. And so naturally, as a byproduct, your hypertension tends to go down. And so he just saw so many benefits. He's still eating this way. They're still making work. He's so sweet. He'll make comments like, just checking up on you, always asking for recipes and making this doable. And they're not even perfect. And I think that's the thing. You don't even have to be perfect. When they go on vacation, they still enjoy themselves. But the day-to-day meals that they're making at home, when no one else is watching, is mostly made of plants.
Yeah. So let's talk about some practical tips and insights that you can share. What advice can you give to busy women who feel that they don't have time for fitness or for meal prep?
It doesn't have to be a big event. The core work that I just showed you, you don't even have to change your clothes. And so it can just be something that you can habit stack on something you're already doing. Like anytime you're on a Zoom call, do some simple core exercises. When it comes to, like, I'm actually not even a planner, because that's everyone's excuse. Well, I don't like to plan. I don't have time to plan. I didn't plan. I was like, I'm not a planner. I never plan. And I still make this work. I'm like, what should I have for dinner today? I don't know. Let me Google it. Take advantage of things like ChatGPT. ChatGPT is an awesome tool when it comes to fitness and weight loss. If you're like, okay, ChatGPT, I'm not in the mood to work out. But what can I do? Give me a workout plan. I literally to this day I paid a lot of money to have a trainer, a year ago. And then I stopped paying the money and I just asked ChatGPT, like, okay, give me a push day workout. Oh, awesome. Give me a pull day workout. Like, give me a workout within this much time. And it's awesome. And then for my recipes, for my planning, I'm like, give me 20 different vegan meal ideas that I can make tonight. Okay. And I just pulled, that's literally what I did tonight. I pulled and made in the slow cooker because I knew I had this interview. So I'm like, I'm going to put it in the slow cooker.
Oh, I
Ask
love it.
Yes, it gave me 20 ideas. I'm like, ooh, I think I can make this one. Give me the recipe for this one. Okay. It gives me the recipe. It's that simple. And then I can do that too if I wanted to plan my week or give me 3 meals. Okay. Now give me a shopping list for these 3 meals. So we live in a world where there's no excuses anymore. Use the technology that we have. Use ChatGPT. Use all these AI prompts to make your life easier. You're doing it for work. Why not do it for your personal life too?
That is so simple. And you're right. The technology is there right now to help us. So we really need to tap into this technology. So how do you help clients navigate challenges like emotional eating or craving?
That is huge. Usually there's an underlying issue. In fact, a lot of times we're just wanting to focus on weight loss. And I love, I think it was a man with last name named Oakes gave an example of a tree, and a tree that is, blowing in the wind and it bends over and the leaves get dirty. They get all muddy. And a lot of the time we're just focused on cleaning the leaves. It's like, oh, they're muddy. Let's clean the leaves. Yeah. And we're not asking ourselves, wait, why is the tree bending? The tree should be strong. And that's what happens when we tend to overeat or emotionally eat. We're just focused on the food. We need to focus, okay, what's the underlying issue? And asking yourself, what do I need right now in this moment? What is it that I really need? What is this? What am I trying to get from this food? What are the benefits? Because we all make choices for a reason. It's because they give us benefits. So you want to feel good right now. Okay, well, what will really feel good? What will really serve me? But just asking kind of the underlying, instead of just spending all this time trying to push the smoke away, it's like, why is the house on fire? We're not just trying to, get rid of the smoke. We want to extinguish the fire. And so getting deeper into, issues of deeper love and support that we may be needing at that time.
Wow, that is so funny. What is one small change that someone can make today to start improving their core strength or nutrition? Give us one of each, actually.
One of the simplest, smallest things you can do for core strength is, if before and after a workout, just think, okay, I'm going to end my workout with doing some core strength, or I'm going to warm up with doing it. If you're one that's already working out, if not, every time you brush your teeth, I don't want you to think, okay, I'm going to pretend like someone's about to punch me in the tummy, and I'm going to pull my abs up, my navel up to, pull it in and up. I'm going to hold it for 30 seconds while I'm brushing this side. Then I'm going to release. And then I'm going to brush the other side of my mouth. And I'm going to squeeze my abs as tight as I can until I'm done with this side of my mouth. I'm going to release. And then while I brush my tongue, I'm going to go and do a little tiny squeeze, release, squeeze, release, squeeze, release. Just super simple. Just think, okay, you can hold it in. There's no wrong way to do this. You can hold it for 1 second. You can hold it for 10 seconds, but just bracing your core, squeezing in and up is such a simple thing. When people join my program, I'm like, it's 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day will really make a difference, but even 2 minutes a day, even 1 minute a day. Yeah. But also with fitness, one of my favorite clients, she couldn't even go on a 5-minute walk, like just really struggling with health issues. And so, she started with a 5-minute walk. And then she turned it into a 7-minute, and then a 10, and then a 12. And now she's at 15 minutes to be able to walk. Sometimes starting small is good enough. So being okay, but because it's momentum. It's like if you were to try and push a train, it's so hard at the beginning to push that train. You're just pushing with all your might. You feel like you're not getting anywhere, and it's so hard. And most people quit. They're like, I can't do it. It's too hard. But if you can push long enough that you get momentum, that as soon as you have that momentum, then it's not so bad. The train is moving, and you just have to keep going and keep pushing it. And so it's getting past that point where you're stuck, just getting to the momentum. And same thing with nutrition. It's just finding a couple of recipes. It's like, if you try 1 or 2 and you don't like it, don't give up. Once you find 5 recipes, that's 1 a week for a month. Yeah. And just doing that one thing will reduce your risk of dying early from 12%. So it's worth it, right? Just getting to that. Yeah.
All right. My last 2 questions for you are this. If time was an illusion and your past, your present, your future existed in the same timeline, and I could teleport you into the past to have a conversation with the younger you, If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
I love this. I love this. And I would basically tell my younger self that life is like a really good story. And a really good story doesn't have a straight line from point A to point B. That would be a super boring movie. Good stories always have ups and they always have downs. But the key to a good story is that the ending, we have the ending in mind. So keeping that ending in mind, keep that ultimate goal, to become the best version you can of yourself. And just like any good movie, if you start with the ending in mind, then when you begin, you're going to begin and things are going to be rough. It's going to be like, okay, I'm going to do this, but something's going to happen. But then you're going to choose to say, so I'm going to do this, but like that's pretty much the storyline of the hero's journey of any good story is the but and a so. And in my mind, life happens and it's through climbing those mountains. And when the so's come to me, that so is your faith. That I'm going to choose faith that the ending, that what I want is going to happen. And I have hope. So the 3 things are to continue to have faith and to have hope that at the end, that it will all work out, that you have hope. Hope is like an anchor through the ups and the downs, that at the end, this will work out. But just choose faith every time. It's like, but there's going to be mountains. So, because a lot of times in life, there's going to be tribulation. Life is 50-50, right? We came here to evolve, and that evolution is with ups and downs. And even when things are great and you've reached what you think is like the best part of life, there's still the ups and downs. Life is still 50-50, 50 good, 50 bad, opposition in all things. But you'll never be as close to divinity as when you're climbing those mountains with faith. That those those times where you're choosing the so, it's like, but this happened, so I'm going to do this. I'm choosing to climb. I have the faith. I'm going to keep going, are the most beautiful moments where you're close to divinity. And the last part is that once you've reached the end, or once you've found, some strength after climbing one of the mountains, is to be a guide for someone else. Once you have climbed your mountain, the next step is to choose charity, or to be a guide for someone else, to be their Sherpa as they're going up their mountain. And every good story, there's always that guide. In every good movie, they're not doing it alone. They always have a good guide. So to choose faith, hope, and charity, continue to hold on to that hope, choose faith, and then the charity is really to be a guide and help someone else.
Absolutely beautiful. Ali, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with us today. Beautiful to see what you've done. You've come out of an adverse situation. You've transmuted it into something beautiful, and you're helping so many women and men too to transform their health with your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The Her Story Circle is a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, inspire you, energize you, but to take you from where you are now to where you want to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thanks again, Ali.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making